Welcome to the Grow Fast podcast, where we talk with leading sales, marketing, and personal growth experts about how companies can accelerate sales, optimize marketing, and grow their businesses fast. Let's go. Hey, Grant, how are you?
Mark, I'm good.
Awesome.
How are you?
Good, good. Hey, so whereabouts are you located?
We're in the Chicago suburbs.
Okay. So still summertime for you?
Summertime, weather's beautiful. I'm getting a little bit chilly last couple of days, but I'm sure it'll warm up a little bit.
Cool. No,
we
we're on
have
the
the ride in Chicago, so it gets cold and then it'll get warm and get hot a couple more times.
I mean, Chicago's a big football town. So about this time of the year, do people start is it getting kind of exciting? It's preseason and we're almost there.
It is, unfortunately for me, or fortunately, I don't know. I don't really follow, but I know that, yeah, absolutely. People are getting into it.
All right. I took a look at your LinkedIn profile and says you've studied martial arts for many years.
That is correct.
Which martial arts?
So I started we called it Americanized Taekwondo. So It is rooted in a guy named Jun Rhee, who came over and was the first person really to teach at scale Taekwondo in America. And then, the system was called National Karate, and they got into kickboxing at some point, and really, never got into the mixed martial arts as it is today, but really did try and integrate things like the kickboxing and many other forms, a little bit of judo, things like that. So they called it Americanized Taekwondo.
Well, that's the interesting thing with martial arts. I've done a few myself, and sometimes they're labeled as traditional karate, for example, or traditional Taekwondo. But if you dig deep enough, you find that all these arts have always been evolving. And there's a really interesting history. If we look at karate, for example, a lot of it comes from Okinawa, and then it was brought up to mainland Japan. But how did it get to Okinawa? It came from China, and so there's all these similarities between traditional Chinese kung fu, Okinawan karate, traditional karate, and even if you look at Taekwondo and some of the other Korean martial arts. So it's interesting. You think any of that helps you with sales or marketing?
Absolutely. I mean, it was all about discipline. It was all about following the process. It takes, what I learned, one of the biggest things I learned was you're going to be this belt for this amount of time, and you're going to screw up a lot, and you're going to be this belt for this amount of time, and you're going to, and a lot of people are going to beat you up for a long time, and then eventually you're going to get okay at it, and then you're going to get pretty good at it,
and so then it gets fun.
And then it gets fun. Yeah, exactly. I think lots of people talk about that, but it's like, it's the process. It's the showing up every day, and working hard.
So many times I was trying to learn a new technique, a new move, and found it so difficult. And I thought, I'll never be able to do that. And it's weird. Like you said, you just keep showing up, and it's one day you might get a little bit of a breakthrough, and all of a sudden the aha moment, and you're like, whoa. And then a couple months later, you're like, hey.
Usually it's when you're like practicing, just screwing around in the basement, and you go, oh, that's how that's supposed to feel, right?
Yeah. I think if you've studied any music at all, for me anyway, learning a new song on guitar, every time I try to learn something a little more complicated, it'd be like, I'm never going to get this. But you just break it down into small little segments, components, and build on it. And to bring it back to business, I think it's really, really important that you go in with that beginner's mindset and be a little bit patient and resilient.
Yeah. Absolutely. But working hard.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really giving it your all every day.
Yeah. Japanese, they might have this in Korea as well, but they have this saying, 7 times down, 8 times up. I don't know if you've heard that, but
Yeah. No, I haven't, but yeah, makes sense.
Same thing there. So let me ask you, because I want to talk to you about some of the different marketing strategies that you see working, especially with small, medium businesses and startups. But before we do that, let's kind of get a level set and talk a little bit about what you do at Adam.com and what Adam.com is.
Absolutely. So Adam.com is changing how domains are found. In the past, somebody would go to a seller of domains, which is usually the big registrars, and they'd say, well, okay, I need a great domain. And, they don't, you'd be on the website and the big box says, okay, tell us what domain you want.
And I would
And the
type
person
in
says, well, I
great
want a great
domain.
domain. And they go, well, tell us which one you want. So there was a big gap between how do I find and we started in naming. So either a name or domain, which are really synonymous today for most companies, and finding one. And that's what we've really been trying to solve for a long time. So today, what we fundamentally are working on and believe is a great solution is what we call a premium or brandable domain marketplace. So we have this community, about 250,000 people, and they think of domains and try and find great domains all day long. They come to us and we have this really great trained AI. We've been working on something called the Domain Genome Project for about 7 years now. We have a ton of data about what makes a great domain, what words, how to combine them, so on and so forth. So we filter them with AI, and then we have real branding experts who have worked on projects with Pepsi and Hilton and Dell and some really big companies who perform a final audit of those names. So it goes from real people thinking of great domains through AI, through another set of real branding experts to get this collection. It's about 200,000, 250,000 of domains that are just, really well vetted, and you can go on and you can find something quickly. They're all easy to filter through. So, you can type in fashion and find a couple thousand fashion domains. And usually you can pick one out of there and you can be confident that it's a really strong brand.
So I want to drill down on that, but I want to also just kind of take a step back, because for people who haven't done this or haven't done it recently, the challenge, because we've done it, the company that I'm co-founding and running, Breeze Docs, we had to do it. We wanted to come up with a name.
Great domain, by the way.
A great domain. Oh, thank you. And we wanted to come up with you got to come up with a company name, but then you got to make sure that domain or some derivative of that name is available, right? So you'd go to the traditional, marketplaces. You could say the GoDaddies or the HostGators or whatever, and you type in Breeze, and they would say, breeze.com, not available. Breeze not available. Breeze 123 dot is available. And I'm like, well, that's not going to help me. And so I don't know what to do there. And then they would say, oh, this one might be available. And if you pay a fee, we'll go and act as an intermediary between whoever, you and whoever owns the domain. We went down that rabbit hole once, and they wanted something like $25,000. And it was just a colossal waste of time and energy. And so what you're describing, which we could have used you, by the way, for, about a year ago, but what you're describing is we've got a company name and we want to see what kind of domains relevant to either our company name or the market that we are, the product or platform that we're delivering, are available. And these have already been vetted, right? Okay. And so let me ask you, now let's drill down on that. Where are you pulling this data from, and how are you vetting these as potentially good brands or domains?
Absolutely. So one minor nuance there is people who come to us typically don't have the name; they have a vision.
Gotcha.
So we want to exist because that's the hardest part,
right?
What do I name this thing?
Well, yeah, because but as I kind of tried to allude to, was that your name oftentimes hinges on, is there a domain available, which is kind of the cart leading the horse or the tail wagging the dog, right? Because your name should be your name, and then you should just go out and get but it doesn't work that way.
And it would be wonderful if it did, but and just as a side joke, I always tell people everything in the world is getting easier. You can get anything shipped to your house in half a day at this point from Amazon. Naming is getting significantly harder because of all the domains and all the trademarks that are out there, and how easy it is for people to start businesses. But back to your question, how do we decide, and what data are we using? There's a core fundamental belief, and I'm not going to be able to go through all of it, of what makes a good domain. And if you want to summarize it, it's easy to say, it's easy to spell, it's easy to remember. And that's kind of the and then there's some more complex ideas, such as brand alignment. So I have this positioning statement, and does that to some extent align with what I'm doing. And here's where it gets complicated, and we can go into it or we can, keep going on. But a lot of people will think like, oh, it has to describe my business. So, Quick Pay, obviously that's a beautiful name, but you're
Yeah.
not going to get that most likely. It doesn't have to be that on the nose. It can be a few steps removed. So there's a lot of nuance to what makes a great domain, but a lot of it falls into the words that you're using, how they're combining. Do they combine to make something more powerful, or are they just smashed together?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Um, like, Breeze Docs combines to tell a whole story. Breeze is fast, is easy. It's, those kind of things. Docs, you know what a doc is. So that's a great, synergy of two words to make a good name. Red Bull is another one of my favorites. Red is power and energy. Bull is strength. Tells a beautiful story. But it's symbolic. So a lot of people
Sure.
would see that and go, no, that's not it. You want to be energy plus.
Kind of very literal. Yeah.
Very literal. So there, there's a lot of those nuances to the symbolism, to the words, to how the words are combined. There's great, words, combinations of words that create a dissonance. Urban decay was one of them that I, probably a little dated at this point, but it's kind of weird. But it works because of that dissonance, because of that tension that it creates. So you use all those things. We use AI, so we start by training the AI in those principles and many, many more, and then we feed it through. I'm sorry, let me step back. So the first thing is real people come up with all the domains. These are people who understand this world and have been in it and want to help people find great domains. Then it goes into AI, well-trained AI, and then it comes into real people who have worked with these businesses like Hilton, like Nestle, like Alibaba, who are saying, I've actually been in the trenches, worked through many, many of these projects, and based on all of the, both the data points and what works and these deep conversations with real brand leaders, this is the list. And it's typically about 8% that we'll let in. So even after real people have come up with great domains, but 8% get through the second two filters.
And then at some point, are you interacting with was it the WHOIS or the domain registry to see what's available? I mean, how do you check that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are pre-purchased domains. So that's actually the first step. The real people who are coming up with the domains are buying them.
Mm-hmm.
Typically. So they have to be owned by a real human being, and then that person has to, and we won't get into the technicality of it, but, words like DNS and stuff, so we can see that they own it.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So in some cases, I guess you also are a domain kind of marketplace.
That is exactly what we are, yeah.
Okay, with the super intelligent search on top of it.
Super intelligent search on top of it. Yep. And we also, we don't want to limit ourselves. We have this creative aspect where people can do crowdsourcing. We have some other tools that are involved, but the heart of what we do is we have this amazing collection of domains that are very easy to search and find and discover.
Okay, so let's kind of continue with that journey. You've got a business owner. He goes to adam.com. He finds the domain that he's been looking for his whole life. He or she finds it. They register it. They own it.
Yep.
What are some best practices now in terms of promoting and protecting that domain?
Absolutely. We almost always recommend that you, even before you buy the domain, you do some level of trademark check. We have some of that, or work with a trademark attorney, because you don't want to put the investment in and then realize that somebody else is using it. So trademark is really, really important. There's many levels and processes and ways to do that. But you really want to make sure nobody else is using it. As you know, that can lead to a cease and desist letter, which is not very fun.
Mm.
Not that I've experienced it personally in any of the businesses I've worked on, but I I can imagine that somebody telling you 6 months in that you got to change your name is not something you want to do. Um, we also really recommend what we call audience testing. So take some names, a list of names. Oftentimes we say 6 names, domains, and vet them against each other.
Mm-hmm.
What you don't want to do, and I have some pretty, I don't know if they're funny stories, but experiences where people will go out and they'll take a list of names and they'll ask their friends, do you like them? And that's just very, very dangerous. Because what does it mean to like a domain? Then you're
Yeah.
asking people to become domain experts. And since they're not, they're going to start making up all these rules that, you know, who knows? So what you need
Well,
to do is,
even in the way you phrase the question can lead
yeah,
to, if you
exactly.
say, "Hey, do you like this domain?" And, oh, yeah, man. Or what do you think about our new domain? Oh, it's awesome.
Right,
But if you
right,
said, "Here's 10 domains, pick the 3 worst and the 3 best,"
exactly.
you might get different answers, right?
Yes, and that's what
But
we
then again,
always recommend.
yeah.
Which one of these names are you most interested in learning more about? Is a
Mm-hmm.
great question because you're taking it into a vacuum and you're
I
saying,
love
does
that.
this name drive intrigue? The other one
Mm-hmm.
I really like is which one of these names best aligns with core brand principle, like integrity. So then you're understanding, can this name draw people? And does this actually, and that's what we were talking about before, brand alignment, does this actually align with what I'm trying to do? Because a big mistake you can make in launching a business is creating a name, using a name and creating a brand that doesn't align with what you're doing. And I
Mm-hmm.
can't think of any good examples right now, but you'll get the point. Maybe you'll think of one that'll, a brand that on the surface tries to be super innovative, but its product is super classic and honest
Mm-hmm.
and trustworthy. And you're just going like, just be what you are. Why are you trying to do this? Why are you trying to be 2 things at once?
Right.
Um, so when you can say which one of these brand names conveys trust, and then another company will say which one of these feels the most innovative.
Right.
And you might have the same company mission and vision and many other things, but you want to position it very differently.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Um, Let me just back up and say,
Mm-hmm.
how did you get Atom.com? I can't imagine that it was available at the time. And then what
Right.
was the rationale behind it? I mean, I could think of
Yeah.
some, you know, Atom building blocks. I don't know, but
That's absolutely what we are leaning into. I mean, this is what we do. We
yeah.
are a domain platform, so we work with the biggest holders of domain portfolios in the world. We had a relationship with the person who owned this. We're venture backed, so we're venture backed by a company called Hilco Digital, which is a domain broker. So they have all these
Uh,
relationships as well. Um, so I mean, this is again, it's just what we do. We can do it for if somebody wants a high quality premium single English word, we are the place to get them, whether we have it on our marketplace or not.
so explain a little bit about this other world that of domain brokers and
Mm,
venture backed. Are there like 3 big players? Are there 1,000 players? Or what's it like out there?
yeah, that's a great
I
question.
feel like we're going into like
Um,
dark web stuff almost.
no, no, no. We want to make sure that
there's,
it's not.
there's a
The
guy
funny thing
somewhere in
is,
Eastern Europe who controls 98% of all the domain traffic.
yeah, right. And I think that's where it gets. It's digital real estate.
Mm-hmm.
This is real estate, but online.
Yep.
Um, it's not as crazy as NFTs, which gets confusing to me.
Yeah.
But if you owned beachfront property in Florida, it would be worth something,
Mm-hmm.
right? It would be worth more than the property sitting behind the, rundown motel in Iowa, right? And that's what a domain is. A single English word.com is worth more than what we were talking before, that hyphenated .app,
Yeah.
right? And so there certainly are, and I don't know the counts. There are a handful of people who own some of the, best online. When you think of digital real estate, of domains, short single English words are the cream of the crop.
And are there any rules, or aren't there some rules in terms of if you own a domain, and I think some people call it, was it domain squatting or
Domain
something
squatting.
like, yeah.
Yep.
There are some rules in terms of you have to, like, within a certain amount of time, you have to actually have some sort of viable business attached to that, or is there no rule about that?
No, there's a whole world of law which is fundamentally based on what's called UDRP. And just to full disclosure, I am not a UDRP attorney in any way, shape, or form. But I'll tell you how I understand it in a very high level. The major thing you cannot do is you cannot use a domain in a way. You can't use somebody else's brand. So if I owned Nike.com, which I don't, of course, but let's say I did, I couldn't go and put up a website that had shoe coupons on it.
Right.
On purpose.
That would be what kind of confusing to the visitors, and it would dilute the Nike brand and all that. Yeah.
Right. So you can't use somebody else's brand. The thing that's really important to understand about this whole world of naming and domains is I can use a domain in a different industry. I was driving we'll stick with Nike. That's good. I was driving down the street and I saw Nike real estate investors.
Mm-hmm.
Nike Shoe Company can't do anything about that. That's a legitimate use of that business.
They can't use the swoosh, though.
No, they cannot use the swoosh, but they could use Nike in their domain.
Yeah.
So that's where it becomes hard. That's where it becomes hard to define. But you can hold a domain indefinitely. Is
okay.
There's nothing, there's nothing stopping you. Going back to real estate, it's you couldn't say, like, if you didn't develop this property, somebody's gonna take it. You could have zoning laws that says you can't put up an XYZ in this space.
I would love to see some kind of, because with a lot of markets, there are market trends and analysis and so on. It'd be great. I've never seen anything in terms of the domain online real estate market. I don't know what you would actually call it, but it'd be kind of cool to see, domain names are up 10% in the last 2 months. That signifies that there are a lot of newcomers that are trying to start up businesses, or I don't know, I'm just making stuff up, but it'd be kind of cool to see some analysis.
Yeah, there's not a lot of there's not like a centralized body where all that data would come from. We try and publish a good amount of data. So if you go to our Twitter, or our X, excuse me, you can see, some of our data, but, we are the largest brandable domain market, but, we still don't have, all the data, obviously. And a lot of people don't publish that. Yeah, I would love to have that too. Unfortunately, I don't.
It'd be interesting. Yeah. So if we go back to the services that Adam.com provides in terms of, you've got the initial search, and then you help them with the acquisition. You can introduce trademarking services, audience testing. Is there anything else?
That's the foundation of it. We do have logo design, so we can help people with logo design. We do some tagline work through our contest platform. And there's definitely plans for more, but those are the core services at this moment.
Okay. And then I'm assuming that your fees are based upon a percentage of the transaction amount in terms of the domain that's being acquired, and then maybe a fee attached to introducing the trademark services and things like that.
Yep. Yeah, we're a standard marketplace. We have a commission. Okay. And then we make money off of any other services. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's go to your position. You're responsible as the chief growth officer for Adam.com, but I would assume growing your business, right?
That is the goal for sure.
And aside from podcasts, What else do you
Mm-hmm.
do? What's working for you guys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, we do a lot of digital. So your classical digital channels like search is very important for us. Um, you know, search and the paid and the organic side. Um, that remains certainly a bread and butter channel.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of work on some of the standard display channels, or display and social. So we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, which is also Instagram. A neat one that we like. We actually had a case study with Quora.
Yeah.
We like them pretty well. It's not a huge market or a huge platform, but it's got some neat features and tools, and we can target some good audiences there.
Because
Of course.
Quora, somebody would go to a potential customer of yours would go to Quora and maybe say, "How do I find a unique domain?" And then
Mm-hmm,
you would have an article from Adam.com or one of your subject matter experts, and they'd say,
mm-hmm.
"Hey, this looks pretty cool," something like that.
That's exactly right. Yep.
I
Mm-hmm.
so I'm gonna. I don't hope you don't mind, but I'm gonna steal that idea from you and or borrow
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I'm giving you credit right now, though. But that's something that I hadn't thought about, but it
Yeah.
totally makes sense. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. We like Quora. Um, LinkedIn, of course. LinkedIn is the major B2B channel. Um, we're starting a lot more into video, so we're really pushing into YouTube. That's a new one for us.
What would you do on
It's
YouTube? Like instructional videos in terms of what we're talking about here, or what kind of content would you create?
Short promotional before, so we're doing paid ads on
Oh, okay,
YouTube.
okay,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
yeah. Somebody's watching a video on getting a great domain, and we're the
Pops
pre-roll.
right in, right there.
There it is. Yeah. Um, yeah. So I mean, a lot of what we're doing is prospecting. We want to be where people are thinking about naming, and that's really where that's where we find that's where we start the conversation. If somebody is thinking about getting a domain or getting a name, we want to be there. We want to be talking to them. Let's see. What are some other unique channels that we are having? Just trying to think here. A lot of what we do is actually on the site itself. So, our CEO is just, he's a super interesting guy. He came from technology. He came from a lot of e-commerce. He ran he was the CTO of a Fortune 100 company. Had a big role in Sears early on as they were doing a lot of of their e-commerce build out and things like that. So one of the things that we've really focused on is discoverability and making it easy to find a great domain. So we really think from an e-commerce perspective and talk a lot about that customer journey into the process. If somebody types in a keyword, are they getting the right results? We talk a lot about merchandising, and I think merchandising is absolutely fascinating, and it's not done in this space at all. So what we have on our landing pages, if you go to a domain, you see a logo.
Mm-hmm.
We use AI now to create a description that says this domain means this, and it tells a whole story around the domain. We have a brand alignment tool. It's really fun. So somebody can come in, they find a domain they like, and they put in a summary of their own business. And then AI analyzes the domain versus their value proposition and tells them if it's a good fit, or creates a unique story to get that vision started.
Yeah, and I don't endorse any platforms or companies typically, but I did go to Adam.com before and I ran some tests. I was impressed with the speed and variety of the responses. I mean, I was like, whoa. I mean, how do they know all this? And then again, the logos, even if it's not the final product, it's kind of this, it allows me to see the domain in a kind of context of what it might look like. And then from there, I can expand on it, probably bring in some other consultants.
a presentation, and you'll appreciate this. I was on I was just lucky. I was doing a presentation on merchandising, and I was on Old Navy,
Mm-hmm.
and I found a product, and for some reason their first picture was just the shirt kind of sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
And it had no person. It was just on a. It must have been like a really early product because they didn't have anything. And then I scrolled over, and it was a shirt on a person, and the person was,
Yeah.
handsome and standing, in their cool pose, and there's nothing, there's no comparison.
Yeah.
You want the shirt sitting there on the table looks terrible. The shirt on the person, you're going, yeah, I want to look like that guy. That would be
Yeah.
cool, and
Yeah.
that's what we do with the logos and the descriptions. So I didn't just get to this much, but in the crowdsourcing side of our business. So we've worked with thousands of companies that have come to us and said, we don't know what domain, and we have a community of people who actually give them domain ideas. And one of the things that we found pretty quickly, and I think it's very, very interesting. And, if you're in the naming process, it's very important. I call it brand imagination. I've taken domains and names that are so good,
Mm-hmm.
and I've given them to people, and they go, nah, and I understand that. And maybe it's not perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
there's this ability to put the words together and start thinking of a story. And what you'll see is the more somebody works in marketing and branding, the more likely, and many other places, but if the more people have cultivated the ability to bring something to life and imagine it to come to fruition, the more likely they're going to go, yeah, all of these domains are great,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have that ability to bring something to life in your mind, it's really important to have these tools like brand alignment where you can plug it in and AI will tell you, yeah, here's a brand vision for you.
Yeah.
Because I use this example. If somebody wrote, you had never heard this, if they wrote Nike on a napkin, I mean, the best brand arguably ever built, top 10 at least. If somebody wrote that word on a napkin, would you be like, oh my gosh, that is just so brilliant?
It's
No.
just yet another Greek god, right? Or it's
Exactly.
like,
Right.
why not
And it is
Achilles? Why
brilliant.
not? Why not? It's just
Right. Right.
Hercules or what? Why Nike? And by the
Right.
way, are people going to call it Nike or are they going to call it Nike? Because
Right.
because
Absolutely.
we had to be trained, because you'd see it, you'd be like,
Right. Well, now um, people in Australia and some other places actually do call it Nike.
do they? That's funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've been talking to people, and they'll say, "Yeah, Nike," but it's so.
By the way, it's one of the best books I've read in the last few years is Shoe Dogs.
I haven't gotten to it.
Oh my
Is it
gosh!
great?
Oh, he is. It's amazing because they didn't start off making shoes. They were selling the Onitsuka Tigers. They were representing them and selling them out of the trunks of their cars to track athletes up and down the West Coast.
Interesting.
And the business started. People started, yeah, those shoes are good. They started to grow. He flies to Japan. This is way pre-internet, right? Goes over
Right.
there, and because he's written them, and they say, yeah, come for a meeting, because he wants to expand the business with them and get kind of an exclusive arrangement. And they said, so Mr. Knight, what's the name of your company? And he hadn't even thought about the name. And so he immediately on the spot, he came up with, we're Blue Metal. Oh, Blue Metal. That sounds good. This is Japan, like 1964 or 5, right? And so Blue Metal.
Right.
Okay. And then, so he gets exclusivity for a while, but then Onitsuka, they want to go direct. And,
Right.
There's this classic battle. And that's when Nike actually starts to look at manufacturers and making their own brand. And it's an amazing story because I thought growing up that Nike was just overnight success brand that was the biggest brand in sports apparel. I remember with the shoes when running became a thing and Nike shoes, running shoes were a thing. And then it was brand, all the clothing wear. And then of course Air Jordan and stuff, but that came 10 or so years later.
Right.
But back to how we started off this conversation about, the importance of discipline and sticking to it, and after a while it gets better.
Yeah.
The journey that the Nike founders took
Yeah.
to get to the point where they were actually, quote unquote, successful took maybe 15 years of a lot of craziness, like I said, selling shoes out of the back, the trunk of a car, that kind of stuff. And then even then, when they first, it was probably a 20-year journey before they hit that, that the recognition that we have today. Right. So amazing story.
So can I tell you our founder's story? It's
sure.
Pretty interesting like that. So we started as a crowdsourcing platform.
Mm-hmm.
Our founder was starting something totally different, and he couldn't name it. He was struggling, so he went to this forum, and he said, "I'll pay you guys $50 if you help me name the business." And he got like 15 names and said, "Okay, one of these is good enough." And then he said, "Okay, I'll build this was fun. I'm going to build this, and maybe 500 entrepreneurs will use it." And I don't know. He just was bored and thought it would be something fun to build. For the most part, I mean, he was doing a little bit on the train here and there. But it was like 8,000 customers later, he was like, "Oh, wait, there's something here."
Yeah.
And then what makes it even, I think this is one of my favorite parts of the story. So we're crowdsourcing names, and then he goes to the biggest naming conference. There's a naming domain conference, and he comes back. He says, "We're going to start a brandable domain marketplace." I said, "We're going to what? Who?" He said, "We're going to start a brandable domain marketplace. Like, this might be a small part of our business, 10% of our business one day." And it just worked.
Uh-huh.
And now it's well over 10% of our business has really become our core focus because we've realized how powerful it is to have a great name. It was just funny, no intention of going. His whole intention was to help 500 people, and we're 50,000 clients in with a totally different business model that we ever dreamed of. He ever dreamed of having.
That's a great entrepreneurial story. But again, it's hugely important. I think if anybody hasn't done a search recently, you can come up with all these, and then searching for them, it just takes so much time because you have to put them in individually, and it's actually very. I found it. Well, what's the word? Demoralizing, because every time we'd come up
everything's taken, right?
Everything's taken, man. I'm like, man, and wait a minute, what about this one? Did we search for that one? And wait, I think it's on the list. And how about there's 3 or 4 of us working on this, right? And it's just, but yeah. So I wish we would have found you guys a year ago.
I mean, you guys did okay though, so that's a good. I like your name, and the thing is, I think a lot of people that I've talked to, they don't even know the strategies for naming.
Yeah.
So you're starting with no knowledge of how you're supposed to do this. Whoa. There's a whole it's a whole discipline of how to create these brands. So one, you're starting without most people are starting without much knowledge of the discipline of naming. 2, then you're sitting there searching all day, and it's demoralizing, right? You're sitting there getting no. Yeah, so I 100% agree.
If we go back to, what you do to help grow Adam.com, you start talking about search, paid, and organic. And I'm curious how much planning you do or strategy you do that relates to which browsers people are using, because I'm going to get different results depending on if I'm using Chrome. And then also with that, what trends are you seeing? Are people going more DuckDuckGo to Brave to Safari to other alternatives?
Yeah. I mean, we always look at every angle, try and unturn every rock. Our core, the things that we see the most are, what people are, the things that impact us the most are what people are doing right now. The closer we can get to somebody actually needs a name, the better.
Right.
And the closer we get to, somebody needs a domain, the better, which makes Google search really powerful. Countries are of course very, very important. Let's see. So you're asking about browsers.
I mean,
What
I
device we
guess,
look at mobile and desktop a lot.
yeah,
That's a big
yeah,
one. Mobile is of course important because, I mean, I'm sure you're seeing this. I think the world is seeing this. More and more people are using mobile.
yeah,
But desktop converts much, much better,
yeah.
which makes sense for a complex, high value purchase.
I guess
Let's see.
the reason I was asking this is you might have heard that there was a recent court ruling that that looked at the payments from Google to Apple to make Chrome the default, and the ruling is those are illegal. So,
I didn't
what
hear.
does
Why
that
are they
mean?
illegal?
Because it does something in terms of unfair competition. Again, I'm not a lawyer either, but and I think the payments were something like, it's something crazy like
I'm sure.
20 billion a year, and the margins on that, because basically you're just saying for Apple, you just like flip the switch, Chrome is the default, so the margins
Interesting.
are like 99.5%. So it's
Interesting.
interesting because there's some fall-on effects there. Some of the effects are Apple's bottom line is going to take a hit unless they can recoup those payments from somebody else. But that
Right.
remains to the lawyers have to sort that out. If they're illegal
Right.
for Google to do it, can somebody else do it? Apple's
Right.
stock took a bit of a beating. Warren Buffett just sold off a big chunk of his
Yeah,
Apple
I did
holdings.
hear that. Yeah. Okay.
I guess I'm just thinking like, okay, so if Chrome is not the default on Apple devices,
Right.
what is? And then do we have to optimize our marketing for whatever that browser is?
Yeah. Absolutely. Um. Yeah. I mean, let me see. That's a big question. Um. I don't know if I have the answer, but some of the things that I'm thinking about are, one of the nice things is you can. I think the device, for us at least, plays more than the browser itself. So we
Okay.
definitely see that an Apple user is a better potential customer for our services than a standard, let's say an Android user.
Android.
Um, I have always assumed that you'll see Safari works better than Chrome. I had always assumed because Safari was, the Apple, and there was a
Yeah.
correlation between Apple and Safari. But now that you told me that Apple's paying so much to be their default, I don't know if that's the right assumption. So
Yeah. So I mean,
I don't know. I don't know if as long as you have, I would assume that the device is more important than the browser.
okay. Yeah, it's interesting. And then and also just the results for organic search can be different as well. Like if you go
Right.
to DuckDuckGo or Brave
Right.
browser,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get the quote unquote content bubble. And then
Mm-hmm.
these days, there's all kinds of also political kind of discussions related to, if you search for a candidate from this party, you'll get these results. And then
Right.
if you get from the other party, you will get greatly different results.
Right.
And I'll just say some are more positive than others, right?
Right.
That's a discussion that's being had. And,
Yeah.
but that can, I don't know how much that affects marketing, but it's just something, I guess, to be aware of what the search engines
Yeah.
kind of do.
Yeah. I mean, I think, to be candid, I think that Google needs to step up its game and really focus back on product.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know how much you engage with Google, and I feel like they're moving away from, we're just going to be the best search engine and the money's going to come, to the money needs to come. They feel like a company that's not on top of their game. And you can see, I feel like you saw the rush of the AI, integration at the top of Google, which I think is one of the big changes that Google's made.
You're talking about the
AI
images that it
recommend
produces.
well,
Okay.
the AI, there's an AI snippet across a lot of
Oh yeah,
searches at this point.
yeah.
Which I mean, I haven't been very impressed with. Um, one of the other things that I have been seeing recently, which I am absolutely baffled by, is when I now oftentimes have to search in incognito on Google because my customized results are so bad.
Yeah.
They're terrible. Like I was searching for something. I was searching for a brand name the other day. It was a small brand in our industry. It was a news source, and they literally gave me GoDaddy. Like it had the word domain. I mean, it was wrong. Like there's, and so I think that's what well, if Google doesn't step it up and own that space like it always has, because Google for years, I think, has been the best search engine.
Yeah.
And if they can't maintain that, we're going to see a lot of shifts. And Bing's doing well. DuckDuckGo is an interesting opportunity. I don't know. I mean, that's going to make our lives a lot harder if there's not as many uniform. If that world fragments, if the search marketing fragments, that's what's going to make a marketer's life a lot harder.
And then somebody can have the one search engine to rule them all that can go and search your top 5 search engines in parallel, bring back curated results, and then you can, I don't know, man. Anyway, hey, let me ask you, just kind of wind this up a little bit. You have to stay on top of what's going on with, domain registration and trademarking and, audience testing. You also have to kind of keep abreast of what's going on in terms of the specific marketing activities that you're leading with Adam.com. So where do you go and what do you do to kind of stay ahead of the curve?
We hire smart people.
That's smart.
It's definitely a team effort. We just, as one example, one of the people on our team who's helping with a lot of the Google platforms. I mean, he is a technical platform expert like I've never met before. And I think that's a lot of it is you have to realize you're not going to be able to do it all. And I'm sure you've seen that.
If you think about the pace of change these days compared to, say, 60 years ago, where, oftentimes people would stay in the same type of job in the same company for their whole career, right? And that just is like, what? That doesn't, and so every time you change job, change company, you're always learning, but every industry is evolving very, very quickly. So where do you kind of want to be able to look a little bit ahead, and see what's coming down the pike. Absolutely. So how do you do that?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is the major publications. You try and stay up on what's happening, but I think it is, I mean, in all seriousness, it is surround yourself with smart people and, they share it with you. Our CEO is, as I was saying, his name's Darpin Munjal, great, very intelligent guy. He's always sharing with us, this happened in he loves AI. This happened in AI. This happened in AI. This happened in AI. I said our technical Google specialist is always sharing articles. You got to see this. You got to see this. We've got a great analyst who's always bringing us the best. Hey, have you seen this platform? He comes into a meeting and he had done this. He had done this code in Python or something like that, and all these things that I have no idea how to do, but they're great. So I think and then just following a handful of people, and a handful of sites is really, I think, all you can do at this point.
No, I totally agree with you, and I have a variety of interests, and they continually change, and I'm super intense about whatever I'm doing. And so I'm always like starting off new things. And a long time ago, I just got used to being the beginner, and I mean, I started off, even if we go back to where we started, martial arts, every time you change a style of martial art, you have to start off as a beginner. You put that white belt on and go in there. humble yourself and don't talk about what you studied before and why do we do it that way and how about this. I just go in there with that beginner mind. But it's tough, maybe a little bit easier to do that when you're a preteen or a teenager. But when you get in your 30s and 40s, and I say, okay, I'm going to go learn judo, and these guys are going to throw me around for a few months, and I'm going to learn. And but once you get used to that, I think those pride, sensitivity things get kind of calloused, and it's just easier. So in the professional realm, it's nice to surround yourself with smart people, ask questions, and who cares if they're dumb questions? Yeah.
Right. One of the other things I'm really big into is like the application of timeless principles. There was this book, a marketing book, and it talks about, I'm going to get it wrong, but basically it says there's 3 ways to get money as a business. Mm-hmm. You get more leads. At the time of sale, you get a bigger sale. After you sell somebody something, you sell more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my first marketing company that I created myself was called Funnel Marketing Group, because I love that principle so much. How am I going to get more people at the time of sale? How am I going to get more people to buy stuff from me after I sell somebody? How am I going to get them to come back to work with me more? And you'd be, I was doing this back to martial arts. I was doing this at just the math at a martial arts school, and you'll probably, it wasn't very pretty. We had, basically I did the math, and the average person after black belt stayed for 6 months, I think. Maybe it was a year.
Really?
Yeah. And I went to the owner. I said, do you know how much money you're leaving on the table? He had, he himself owned 4 schools at that time. I go, if you kept them for 1 more year, because it takes, 4 or 5 years to get there. So if you kept them 1 more year, you'd have a whole nother school.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, so some of it is just, a lot of what my work is are we applying this simple principle properly? And other people, as I was saying, a lot of the technical experts can come in, they can say, here's a good idea. And obviously I do more than this. Hopefully people think that, but a lot of it is like, let's just stay focused on some of these simple things that you can learn in the best books on the subject, kind of the 101 stuff.
No, but I can see that, keep the people around longer, because that cost of acquisition is your biggest cost, right? That initial cost of acquisition.
Correct.
And if you can keep them on the Adam.com platform, for example, for one more service, an additional service, or get them to come back and, so that's, I totally
get a referral, there's so much work that can be done.
Yeah. Awesome. Boy, Grant, I, love it when I learn something, and I got a couple good ideas to help our Breeze Docs business from market it more effectively based upon what you shared with me. One of them was the Quora, and then there's another one that I'm not going to say because it's going to make me look like, what the hell? Why didn't you already think of that? And as you were talking about it, I was like, what the hell? Why didn't I think about that?
So we're back at the pride thing. You just got to tell us it's okay.
I am representing a company, right? So I got to. So anyway, hey, really enjoyed the conversation, and would like to wish you and the rest of the Adam.com team a tremendous rest of the year.
Thanks so much. You as well.
All right. Take care. Cheers.